Hi and welcome to The Winning Factor. I'm Alan Aitken, and on this show each week I take a look at some upcoming races in Hong Kong and try to isolate an angle to the race we might look back on later as having been a path to finding the winner. Well, group racing once again this week in Hong Kong, but this time on Friday, our Chinese National Day meeting, a public holiday, and it features the National Day Cup. And there'll be plenty of information and interviews and things about that around the Hong Kong Jockey Club website. I'm going to look at two of the support races, and the first one is race 1 and our winning factor, the debutante. Well, this is a standard Class 4 to open proceedings, but with a few chances, some of them, like My Ecstatic and Whiskey Neat, quite well exposed. Some like Touch Faith and Mega Bonus with some exposure. And then there are two new untapped horses, Strathmore 2 and Good News. Now, Strathmore 2 does have some ability, but I think we're going to see him in a better light a little bit later on when he's had a bit more experience and gets out, more importantly, to a little bit further than 1200 metres. But Good News, he won a trial in New Zealand in tradesman-like style. He's had 4 trials for Chris So in Hong Kong, 3 of them this season. And I thought we'd take a look at his most recent offering from the trials. Now, this is from September 21, batch 1, and this is a trial over 1200 metres significantly. Good News is in yellow colours with checkered sleeves, and he jumps well. Then Zach Purton drops him in behind the speed runners just to let him get the feel of a race and get to the line in the straight. Now, in front of him, when he turns for home, he's got the Class 2 recent winner California Deep Shot in front of him, and the high-class Skyfield, a runner in the National Day Cup on Friday. He's on the outside in the yellow colours, so plenty of talent around him, and he and those other two get through, fill the placings. The final sectional, not that strong to be honest, but none of the 3 was asked to give a really full effort. So that's a sound lead-in to Sunday's race where Good News will make his racecourse debut, and I thought this was a good moment for us early in the season to get a look at the stats surrounding these debutantes. Now, so far this season, of course, we've already seen Nervous Witness and Lord Thunder win at their racecourse debut, but I think the figures I'm going to show you will reaffirm that pretty much all of the time. The new horses starting off in Class 4, the horses who haven't had a race anywhere up to that time, are definitely worth a second look under the terms of the Hong Kong system. Now, first of all, here's the table showing the Class 4 debutantes, and you'll see the top 10 trainers over the last 10 years with the Class 4 debutantes. That is brand new horses, not the other horses that debut in Hong Kong but have raced somewhere else. We're talking only about horses having their first race, and they're ranked by performance here, the trainers, versus expected wins, and this is a strong betting angle. These are the top 10 trainers. You see they are all ahead of the market expectations, but around about 2/3 of Hong Kong's trainers outperform the market with these debutante horses, and you can see the totals down below, and it's a positive if we include all the trainers as a group. Now, if we narrow that further to just debutantes over the Sha Tin 1200 metres, the assignment ahead of Good News on Sunday, it's nearly the same picture, with a majority of trainers showing a better than expected performance with these horses when we measure it against the odds, and a positive expectation for the whole group of current trainers as a collective. And on both tables, you might have noticed that Good News' trainer Chris So is right near the top of the rankings. In fact, I would say this is the thing that Chris does best, turning out debutantes ready to win. Now, they won't all be Nervous Witness or even Lord Thunder, but even if they're just a little bit handy, under the circumstances of the Hong Kong handicap system, these first starters are sent out to begin their careers at a level that makes them well handicapped, even if they are just tradesmen as time goes on. And there is nothing to dislike about the map either for Good News in this race. There looks a decent speed. I think it'll be set by the likes of Beauty Amigo and Whiskey Neat, but with a few other speed options as well. And I think that Zach Purton is going to park Good News in behind the speed like he did in the trial and see if he can get the job done first time out. I think he can, so the tip in race 1 is Good News. Let's hope so. His winning factor, the debutant. As you saw in those figures, these horses having their first start in Hong Kong without racing anywhere else, they are a positive expectation overall, and certainly some trainers are better than others. This is what Chris So does well. The other race I want to look at is the final race, race 10, and our winning factor here, the Map. Now this Class 3 features a couple of progressive young horses who are admittedly coming off disappointing efforts as the favourite when they returned this season. Drops of God from the John Size stable and the Golden Scenery from Tony Cruz's yard. There'll also be some fans for Quadruple Double with star apprentice Jerry Chow getting aboard, and just a little chance I think at the weights to Trust Me down at the bottom of the handicap. But I want to focus mostly on Drops of God and the Golden Scenery and the likelihood of them bouncing back from what were costly defeats first up. So let's take a look at those events. First of all, race 28 this season, the Golden Scenery. He's in red colours with dark blue sleeves and really couldn't have got a much better ride first up than Vincent Ho gave him. He sits in midfield in a slow first half of the race, following the eventual winner, My Sugar, who's in the greyish sort of colours. And when they straighten for home, My Sugar comes out, the Golden Scenery comes off his heels, goes up to join him, and I've got to say at this point at the 200 metres he looks the winner, but just doesn't finish the race off while My Sugar pulls away from him. Now I have to say we need to look at that critically and say that was disappointing. The Golden Scenery, given every possible chance there, didn't finish the race off. The only things I did think about it post-race were perhaps he wasn't ready for 1400 metres and perhaps he wasn't ready to run 1400 metres first up. It was the first time he'd been at that distance in his career. Now 7 days later, Drops of God was the disappointing favourite, so let's take a look at his performance. This is race 44. He's in red and pink colours with a white cap. He's in the outside barrier and he springs the gates for Joe Moreira, crosses over, unable to lead, but he gets to the outside of the horse who does lead, California Sibley, and that horse is ultimately beaten in a photo in the race. So it wasn't an overly taxing lead. The pace is relatively kind for the first 800 metres, so Drops of God hasn't really been burnt to get over there. Nearing the 300 metre mark, I think backers of the favourite were on good terms with themselves, but that changed quickly, and by the 150 metres the red flags were everywhere, and then he was swamped late, although beaten only a length on the line. Like the Golden Scenery, that was a sound performance, but not quite what was expected from the people who made him favourite. So what I'm thinking going into Friday's race is we're going to get a fitter version of both horses, and I don't think there's a great deal between them, and to me they are still the leading chances. Well, if there's not much between them, how can we separate them? And that brings us to the Map. And the thing that weighs in favour of Drops of God is that gate speed that we saw early in that replay, coming back from a slowly run 1400 to what might be a fairly slowly run 1200 metres. And the Golden Scenery also has a wider gate here. I think that's a recipe for the Golden Scenery to get further back this time and have to give away a big start. Meanwhile, Drops of God, from a better draw this time, will be firing out from Moreira, looking for the front or outside the lead again if something like Quadruple Double decides to keep the rail in the lead, but he'll be up on the pace and getting a head start. So the tip in race 10, Drops of God. His winning factor, the Map. I'm prepared to overlook the disappointing runs of both of these horses first up. I think they'll both be fitter. There isn't a great deal between them on their form. However, I think the Map certainly gives all the tactical advantages to Drops of God. Well, that's it for the winning factor this week. Enjoy the group racing on National Day, Friday. We'll see you next time.